Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 as I dive into the aftermath of 2020 and the last 4 years. If you didn't catch part 1, you can go back and rewatch, catch yourself up. The first episode, I kind of just gave a little bit of a background of who I am so you could kind of connect to my energy a little bit more, understand who I am, where I've came from, all those kinds of things. I go into the beginning stages of my spiritual awakening, what came into my awareness first, and in this episode we dive more into where I'm at now, how I started and how it's evolved over the last 4 years and where my evolution has taken me and things like that. So get yourself situated, get cozy with me, grab a beverage. I don't know what time you're watching this. It is morning time here, so I have my coffee. Got that candlelight glow going. Just get cozy, settle in with me as we have story time. So good. My auntie got me this cup. So cute. Says it takes a big heart to shape little minds, because I homeschool my daughter. It's so cute. It says teacher, has like the nutrition facts on it. So it's like one full classroom, serving size is an awesome teacher, hardworking 1000%, dedication 350%, passion, patience. Oh, and then it says regret 0%, sleep 10%, caffeine 110%. So anyways, I just love this cup. It makes me feel so happy and special. It's the little things in life. Truly is the little things. They become the big things. So, all right. I hope you're all settled in. Just a little bit of a recap. I won't go too much into recapping what was on the last episode, but just a tiny recap. I kind of left off where my spiritual awakening started and how I went down like all of these conspiracy rabbit holes, and it really just kind of like, it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I just didn't even think were possible. So much of the truth that we are fed through our homes and public school systems and things like that, they weren't seeming to be as true as we were led to believe. And so another one of the big conspiracy theories that I experienced was the corruption of the government, the corruption in the church, and all the, the three-letter bureaus like the CIA and the FBI and the IRS, those kinds of things. So that all came into my awareness, where before 2020, I had no idea. I just knew what they were, I knew to follow the rules and yada yada. So all of a sudden, all these things started popping up into my feeds, and these groups that I would be like added into were like all about like researching this stuff. And so I was just kind of like, for about 2 years, I was so obsessed with this like other side of the truth, if you will. And I was in this place where I felt like the information that I was gathering and researching and whatnot was like the end all be all. That was the truth. And so I went through this phase of really like projecting out my viewpoint, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the part that I started to realize a few years later was that I was still in a place of judgment. I was judging others for their viewpoint and thinking that my viewpoint was above their viewpoint and whatnot. And I've learned now that we all have our own truth. We all have our divine timing of waking up to different truths. And that just because somebody can't see what I see doesn't mean that they're wrong. I have learned so much about right and wrong, and that there is no right and wrong in this world. And that's just been life-changing, like so life-changing. And starting to understand this world that we're living in and how to actually navigate it, and learning about the law of one and the 12 universal laws, and that like the whole universe has to abide by, and things like that. And so all of this, like, it was really overwhelming. So I want to start there and talk about my feelings when all of this started opening up for me, because there wasn't a lot of people at that time that were waking up to it. I mean, on social media, yes, but like in my everyday circle of friends, I wasn't, or I didn't have that, that friend group, that circle or family that was waking up at the same time, except for my sister. My sister and her husband have been awake for a little while. I should talk about that a little bit, because, that's one thing that was like a really pivotal moment. So, my sister and her husband have been very awake and open to these other possibilities and these other truths and whatnot. And I literally thought that they were crazy. I'm gonna put air quotes, because I did. I thought they were crazy. I didn't understand them, and that's one thing I want to point out. They weren't crazy. I just didn't understand them. We weren't speaking the same language. We weren't on the same frequency. And so it wasn't until, I think it was like March of 2021, me and my husband started dabbling with psilocybin mushrooms, and we had our first journey, if you will, and that was insane what I experienced. And I remember sitting there, it was just me and my husband, but I went through this like period. It was probably about 3 to 4 hours where I was just silenced. I could not speak. I was there, like I could, and that freaked my husband out. He wasn't prepared for that. So meanwhile, he's also on psilocybin, while I cannot communicate. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I could see him, like I could hear him, like he was there, and he was like, "Are you okay? You're safe. I love you." And I was just like, I couldn't speak. Like I literally could not speak words. And so he ended up calling my sister. And so her and her husband came over to our house. This is before she moved to Tennessee. And they came to our house and sat with us the rest of the night into like the morning. I think they left at like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And we were finally like safe and like coming down back into earth reality. So anyways, I remember sitting there while couldn't speak. And I just was like looking at my brother-in-law, and he was like, I'm just gonna be really like open and real with you on what I experienced. He was sitting there in this chair, and he was like, his face looked very like demonic. It started like very demonic, very like what we picture as like Satan, the devil, that kind of stuff, very like evil entity looking. And I just was like watching him. And meanwhile, while I'm seeing this on his face, I'm like, inside of me, what I'm feeling is all this judgment that I had placed on him. And I was feeling what he was feeling. And I was feeling all the judgment that my family had placed on him. And things like that. And because we didn't understand him, right? So because we didn't understand him, we judged him, you know? And so meanwhile, so I'm hearing all this stuff inside me, feeling all this stuff inside me, which is like breaking my heart. Like the amount that I could feel his pain from him feeling the judgment towards him being projected at him was unreal. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching his face, and as I'm feeling like all this judgment, that's the devil that we placed on him, right? We projected him as this evil, crazy conspiracy theorist, you name it, whatever, right? And so that's where it started. We created that entity on him. And slowly, as I was watching, it was like transforming. Like his face was all the what looked like tattoos all over his face, this evilness, like it was like dissipating. And throughout that experience, he morphed into, I literally watched him morph into this little boy. The true essence of his being was this compassionate, sensitive, caring, like man, like a boy though, like the innocence, like it was just so beautiful. Like, and I bawled, like I just instantly turned into this rock, where once I realized that I created this version of him inside my head based on what my family thought of him, what I thought of him at the time, and like all these false identities placed on him. And that's what I was seeing, was my demonization of him. And it just broke me down when I saw that when you take away everybody's judgment and everybody's projection of their thoughts of him, when you take it all away, his essence, his true essence was of love and compassion and gentleness and sensitivity. And like, your girl just like lost it. I just bawled and released. And when I came, like after I processed and let everything that I experienced integrate, oh my goodness, I was free of those feelings and learned that there is no place for judgment here. And we create these versions of people in our minds. And just because someone creates this version of you doesn't mean that's really who you are. That's their perception of you. And that you're going to be a different character in everybody's story, right? That was like the epiphany of this psilocybin journey. Like, oh my gosh. And that's why I say, like, these medicines are here to truly help us. God, source, universe, put these on the earth for us to use to achieve, to receive higher consciousness, a higher level of awareness. And from that moment forward, I was forever changed. I was a whole different person. And then what's crazy is I didn't really realize this at the time, but you do have to integrate, because you do get like thrown into this new awareness, and you're like, how do I navigate this newness? This is so unfamiliar to me, and nobody else can see what I see. And so I'm just sitting here for like 2 years, just like, wow, only really having my sister and her husband now to really lean on, which I was I'm still so grateful for them. And so my point with that story is we only operate out of a place of our level of awareness, but that doesn't mean that's the end all be all. So when I realized that I was placing so much judgment on people for their viewpoints that might be different than mine, I realized that everybody is just doing what they feel is right with the tools and the level of awareness that they have. And that just opens up so much compassion for people. When you can truly just step aside, put your ego aside and say, just because I don't see what you see, and just because I don't understand you fully, Doesn't mean I need to judge you. When you can operate from a heart space of unconditional love, which what Jesus or Yeshua was teaching us was love thy neighbor as thyself. So now I look at everybody I encounter and I just love them for who they are right then and right there. Even if I don't agree with everything that they believe and are about or anything, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change my life, right? It doesn't affect my day-to-day life having somebody else view something differently than me. So it really changed my whole dynamic on everything. How I showed up as a wife, how I showed up as a friend, how I showed up as a mom. And after that first journey, I was kind of like, you kind of are on this like glow for a while, and you're like really letting that all kind of integrate into your system and upgrade your cells and all that kind of stuff that it does. And nobody really talks about the like 6 month later mark where you kind of roll into like a state of depression. And if you're not careful, you can really spiral out of control with what they call spiritual psychosis, I believe, is where you're just so enthralled with the spiritual side of things, you kind of lose your grounding, your humanness, right? And so I want to get into that just a little bit, because it is per my belief that we are spirit first, heavenly spiritual beings first, and we descend down here to earth and we experience the human experience, which has spirit and ego, God and the devil, okay? The ego is the devil, if you will. We all carry each within us, and it is our job to learn to push the devil in us, the ego, the judgment, the bullying, the fear mongering, all of the low vibrational energy frequencies, push those aside and come in to your God self, the love self, the peace self, the unconditional love and compassion and grace. That's the evolution of the human, is we drop into this egoic, hard reality where there is what we quote unquote call evil in the world. We need to realize that everybody is just doing the best they can with what they've been taught. And I'll never forget this. Now I'm just going to disclaim this right here up front. I'm not condoning the acts of murderers and things like that. People who place harm on other people. I'm not condoning their behavior or glorifying their behavior. But I do just want to point something out. I was listening to the Dolores Cannon book. I believe it was called Between Death and Life, I think. And it forever shifted my perception of people. Okay? So Dolores Cannon is like, I mentioned this in the other episode, but she is like a 30-40 year hypnosis therapy. She created her own specific, I think it's like QHHR or QHRT, or I don't know the exact thing, but she created this version of hypnosis where she can connect to other beings through you and your higher self, your subconscious. And so her books are very laid out in like dialogue. So she puts, somebody under, or people, it's like stories of people being put under hypnosis and their conversations. And which is so good. It's like such an easy read. And so I was listening to the audiobook, and she starts talking about Jack the Ripper. And which really like resonated with me because I remember I don't even really know how I started learning about Jack the Ripper when I was a young girl, but I remember being like fairly young, like somewhere between like, I don't know, 8 and 13. And we had just newly gotten like a computer. Yes, like, you know, computers in our home were like, so exciting and so cool. And so we had the internet, and I just started searching these weird things. I don't know how or why, but one of them was Jack the Ripper. And I was like horrified at like what he did to these women. And if you're not familiar with Jack the Ripper, he was like the murderer. And I think he had a hook for a hand, and he would lure these women in, and he would like rip them from their rectum up to the navel. So like really gruesome, right? And so she's put this person under hypnosis and was talking, and all of a sudden this like it came through about Jack the Ripper. And what's so fascinating is she goes into explaining that each of us on a soul level, before we incarnate into this world, before our soul gets transferred into an infant's body and then is birthed, right? We choose what we want to learn in this lifetime, what our mission is, what lessons we need to learn, and we pick our soul family up there, our spirit team, to descend down together, and we end up finding each other somehow. That's why, we're all meant to be in each other's lives, no matter what, for some sort of reason, for a lesson or a blessing, something. And so she goes into talking about how Jack the Ripper's soul, his soul mission here on earth was to learn what it felt like to completely disregard a human. And so his life here was torturing and not giving a shit about humans. And she goes into more detail than I can, reiterate to you. But she also talks about all the women that he ended up killing signed up in soul contract together for him to play out this part, for him to learn and experience what it's like to have like such distaste and disregard to human life. And so when you actually take a moment and allow your ego to step aside, because we immediately want to be like, oh my God, that is just so wrong. That is bad. That is evil, blah, blah, blah. And in the human experience, yes, I fully get that, okay? I'm not saying that I don't. But when you start your ascension journey, your spiritual awakening journey, you realize we all have a purpose here. We're all trying to play out what we signed up to learn here. Some people's, theirs is to learn what joy feels like, to learn what unconditional love looks like. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their different thing that they're here to learn and experience. And so when you gain that level of awareness, you understand that now we can perceive it as wrong, but he was just playing out what he signed up to play out. And every single person that he encountered that he ended up unaliving signed up with him to play it out. So it almost gives you this peace because, like I said, we're heavenly beings, but earth is not heaven. So we descend from heaven as our perfect spiritual selves, made in the image of God, right? We descend down to experience not heavenly things. We can't experience what it's like to disregard human life up here in the heavenly realms, right? So if that's part of your soul's expansion, is to learn and understand what it's like to disregard human life, you descend down and your life here is going to look like you're disregarding human life. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So learning that there's no place for judgment, right? Because you don't know for certain what is going on inside their psyche. You don't know what they signed up for on a soul level to play out an experience here. And so that came into my awareness, that blew my mind. And I'm even now currently listening to the audiobook Conversations with God. Oh my God, if you guys, I have it linked in my playlist here on YouTube. It's free to listen to on YouTube. So I suggest, if you are kind of like on board with what I'm, sharing and putting out there, you feel like you're on this like spiritual awakening, new things are coming into your awareness, I really suggest you listen or find the book and read Conversations with God, because whoo, it'll forever change your thought patterns on God and what she is all about, and realizing that God created us in her perfect image, right? There's masculine, divine feminine. The energy of God is both and at the same time. And it's equally feminine, equally masculine. And that energy can show up in any way that you need it to. If you resonate with God being a man, a father figure, then that's what it'll be for you. If you envision God being this old man with a white beard, that's how he's going to show up for you. If you resonate with God's energy being divine feminine and a mother figure, that's what it's going to show up for you as. This idea that we can place a box around the Creator's energy is baffling to me. This is the I am. God says, I am who I am. I'm everything. And we are made in the image of God. We are fractals of the one. And so when you start to understand that, you see things so differently. And in Conversations with God, what's so beautiful about listening to the audiobook is there's 3 voices. So you have the author who is actually speaking, because it's his story. It's what happened to him while he was writing this book. And like basically God takes over while he's writing. And then it's the voice of a man, God, but then you also have the voice of God as a female. So it goes back and forth, and it's just beautiful, just beautifully done. And it really keeps having the different voices, really keeps, you engaged in the story, in the conversation. So, God says there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad here. We're all just here to experience every aspect of life, from fear being the lowest vibration, to love and authenticity and peace being the highest vibration. And we need to experience all of it. And when you can really truly understand that on a soul level, you're so at peace. And to realize that we're just here for such a short time, why not experience everything that you possibly can, right? I'm not saying that, go out and like hurt people by any means. Don't do that. But just don't hold judgment in your heart. True unconditional love has no place for judgment. And that's what's interesting to me about religion and the church, is they judge so much, which goes against the teachings of Christ. It just does, 100%. And I started coming across, so on my like evolutionary journey, like I said in the last episode, my first instinct was to go to church. That's where I thought that God was, and yada yada. So where I'm at now, like I said, we stopped going to church. I started seeing things for what they were. I started seeing women in the church being gossipy and, putting others down. And to me, that's not good behavior. That's not what Jesus was setting out to teach us. And so it rubbed me the wrong way, and a big fiasco happened with like the co-op, and that was like my cue is like, this shouldn't be happening within the church. I am going away. And so I stepped back. My husband was thrilled. And I just started I still started diving into the Bible. I don't believe the Bible has the full truth, but it has some truths in it. Just like the Quran has some truth, and the other ancient texts have truths in them. I don't believe one is higher than the other. I think you need to do your due diligence and read all of them or parts of all of them to try to understand the whole, if you will, right? So you can pick truths out of all of these different books, and then you create this whole picture, right? And so I had started coming across like scripture that talks about like the Pharisees asking Jesus, like, what is the the coming of Christ going to look like, or what is the coming of the kingdom going to look like? And from what I grew up understanding was that there was going to be a spectacle in the sky. Everybody was going to be able to see the second coming of Christ, and it was just going to be, this glorious things, this man coming out of the clouds, if you will. And literally in like the book of Luke, the Pharisees ask Jesus, what's it going to look like when the kingdom of God comes here? And he responds by saying, there won't be anything to see. There won't be anything to speculate. The kingdom of God is within you. And when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, why is the church teaching that there's going to be some spectacle in the sky and this man's going to come down from the clouds, when the Bible and Jesus himself is stating the complete opposite? These scriptures, which are within the Bible, started coming into my awareness. And I was like, oh, this is part of my mission. I know it. There's no other reason why I would be so fascinated and truth-seeking all of a sudden, and like all this stuff. If it wasn't for a divine purpose. And so I started sharing little things here and there, and trying to prove the misinformation that was coming, and the deceitfulness that was coming from religion and the church, all the indoctrination. Because like I said, religion and the church weren't created, at least Christianity wasn't created till 400 years after the death of Christ. So it was created to control a people. And when you really start diving into the true teachings of Christ, you realize that the church is not following Yeshua's teachings. And that is very disturbing. And if you are a churchgoer, I just encourage you to start opening your eyes to different things. Start looking at some scripture that goes against what the church is teaching. Because it's there. It's there. I should grab my Bible and read a couple verses, because it's like astonishing when you start reading it, and it's like, why isn't this book read in church? if you start to realize that church sermons only speak about the same few things over and over and over and over again. They only really read out of like the Gospels, the Gospel of Luke, the Gospel of Mark, Matthew, John. They don't really go into like 2 Corinthians or, just some other books in the Bible. It's like, why? Why don't they share those stories and talk about those stories? Oh, because it goes against the control. It goes against the narrative that they're trying to keep you stuck in, that you're a sinner, that you were born of sin, and that you're inherently bad, if you will. And Jesus says, no, there is no sin of the world. There is only, what does he say? If you want to categorize something as sin, it's when you're operating out of the ego. The 7 powers of the ego, which is the 7 deadly sins, right? So if you're acting out of lust, if you're acting out of gluttony, if you're acting out of fear, anger, like these low vibrational energies, if you're acting out of them, right? That's when it's considered a sin. But he says we are inherently good. And that is like everything to me. I am not a sinner. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. I'm human. I'm here to have a human experience. The good, the bad, the ugly, right? But I am good. My soul is good. No matter what I've endured and what I've done to others over my life, right? God loves me anyways because he knows my heart. He knows what I set out here to experience. He knows through and through. I say he because that's what I'm, used to saying. But don't get me wrong. I understand the whole spectrum of the energy and that it's the I am, it's the everything. And so this whole journey has just like gotten me to this place now where even when my kids like mess up, now don't get me wrong, I do lack patience some days and I do snap at my kids occasionally, but I've learned to apologize. I will look my daughter in the face and say, I am so sorry for my behavior. You did not deserve to be yelled at like that. Let's talk about what happened. And sometimes she cries and hugs me. And I know in my heart that she just received my apology and all she wanted to hear was that I was sorry. And so I'm not afraid to own it. Like, am I human? Do I make mistakes? Do I still operate out of the ego sometimes? 100%. But I've learned to see what I did and to apologize and own what I did. And that's the big, huge change. And even to this point, like there's no right or wrong. There's just experience, and then you learn from it. Bad experiences teach us something. Good experiences teach us something. There's a lesson to be learned in everything. And so it's even gotten like to this point where like my stepson is now a teenager. Like I said, he's back in public school and I just have to laugh because he was in public school for 4 months. And then he had his first girlfriend, he had a first kiss, he smoked pot for the first time, and I just sat there and laughed. And I just made the joke to my husband. I was like, oh, only four months back into public school and he's already, showing all this like misbehavior. And when he came home from a friend's house and he just like, he didn't smell like pot, I would know, right? But he smelled like a cologne, a strong cologne I've never smelled before. And he comes home. My husband was at a PT appointment and he's like, I'm like, why do you smell weird. Like, I've never smelled that cologne before. What the heck? He's like, I don't know. And then he's like, a little bit later, like 5 minutes later, he's like, I'm going to take another shower. I just feel really gross. And this boy, like, I tell you, this boy has never taken 2 showers in one day, no matter how sweaty he's gotten. No. So that was like the second red flag. And I was like, I texted my husband and I was like, what are the odds that you think that he like smoked pot with his friend? And he messages me back and he's like, I don't think Kellen would do that. And I was like, okay. And Matt gets home and he just goes into his room and like just nonchalant chit chats with him. And he didn't notice his eyes being all weird or anything. Like, I didn't notice his eyes being like chinky and like, you know, that typical like stoner look. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And so I was like, okay, I just dropped it. The next day, we all go to the gym together and me and Kinsley leave because I don't need to work out as long as my husband feels like he needs to work out. So we leave and it was right before 4th of July and there was like the fireworks stand. So him and Kellen went to get fireworks. And he comes home and he goes, you were right about Kellen yesterday. And I was like, I was like, I knew it. That mom sense, you know? And I was like, what'd you say? Like, how'd you find that out? And he's like, I just decided to ask him, like, hey, have you ever, you know, do any of your friends smoke pot? Do you, you know, have you ever been asked to smoke pot, you know? And, and I think he said no at first. And, Matt's like, you can tell me, we're going to talk about it. Remember, typically you're going to get in trouble for lying, not for what you actually did. And so right then and there, he just fessed up to it. He's like, actually, yeah, yesterday I smoked with Chris. And it was a interesting place to be as a parent because I had the like indoctrination, the programming of what like my parents would probably have done to me if that came about. But I also had a level of awareness where I was like, can I do something different? And we decided to just talk, be real, human to human, and talk about it. And so we sat at dinner that night and we talked about the fact that, you know, his mom smokes, we smoke, so there's nothing bad with using cannabis. But at 13, you have so much growth to go through. Your brain is still developing. It's just not an appropriate age to be dabbling in these substances. And the fact that we could just talk, no tears shed, no punishment, because I'm learning that parents that punish create sneaky kids. Parents who communicate and teach create communicative kids. And when I read that quote somewhere, that hit my soul. And I was like, I don't want to push my kid away where he feels like he can't trust me, can't come to me, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable that kids are going to be peer pressured. I want to be that safe place for them, no matter what. And so we just explained, if you end up in a situation where it's inappropriate to be doing this, whatever it was at this age, yes, we're going to talk about it. I will come get you. I will come save you. I will, you know, whatever I need to do. We will talk about it, but you will only be punished if you lie. And so teaching to speak truth and not to be afraid of what you did has been huge, because there's not really a place for punishing behavior. Use those instances, those experiences, and turn it into a teachable moment. And like I had said in the first episode, I was telling my dad I was explaining what had happened to my dad. And I shared that I just wished that they had opened up more about what they experienced as teenagers and young adults, so that I knew that my parents would understand. But I didn't have that. I thought my parents were like straight-laced. We had some alcohol in the house, but like my parents didn't like drink regularly at all. Maybe on special occasions, but like not typically, right? And so yeah, it's just I just hope to shed a little bit of light and share like a little bit of a private moment that happened within our little family, that I was presented with this choice to keep passing down generational trauma of fear-based teachings, punishment, the belt, the spoon, spankings, yada, yada, yada. Or stop it right there, be the generational curse breaker, if you will, the generational cycle breaker, and say, no, I'm going to come at this from a place of love and acceptance and understanding that you are a teenager experiencing peer pressure and the excitement of trying new things and yada yada, right? I can guarantee each and every one of you that are watching this right now have experienced peer pressure and those kinds of things at one point. And I'm sure that if you were to really reflect on what came about, what you experienced from your parents when they found out, or whatever it might be, that you probably wish they would have came from a place of love and understanding, right? You as a parent get to choose. You get that luxury. You have that power to teach and be a different parent. And now I'm not saying that my parents were bad and they did things wrong. They were only operating from a place that they knew for themselves. And they were only using the tools that they knew how to use, right? And so if you are one of those where you're starting to see these cycles that aren't serving our highest good anymore, be brave enough to step out of that cycle and say, this stops here. We're going to move forward doing it this way. And it's life-changing. It's so freeing. It's like these shackles are ripped off of you. These shackles are ripped off of you, and you were like free to move about and do things the way that you want to do them, because there is no right or wrong. There is only lessons to be learned. And sometimes we take a wrong turn, make a wrong decision, and we have a consequence, right? We have a learning moment, a teachable moment, and your girl, my energy type, I always take the hard road. I always take the hard road for some reason. Most of my life, I have dated guys that people around me could be like, what the fuck are you doing with this guy? Like, stop. But I had to figure it out for myself. I had to learn it for myself until I finally would see it, and I'd be like, oh, shit. They were right this whole time. What was I thinking? But that's just me. That's my personality, is like, I have to test the waters. I have to, and that's now who I am really stepping up to be, is like, somebody will tell me something and I'm like, well, I'm going to research that and see how I feel about it. See if there's anything else to it. I'm not going to take this as like, as the end all be all truth. I'm going to hear what you're saying, and then I'm going to go do my due diligence and see what I find and see what sits and resonates within me, right? Before I take it as my truth. And speaking about your truths, I want to explain that it's ever evolving. So your truth that emerges at the beginning of your spiritual awakening doesn't always stay with you through the whole journey. And so that's one thing I really want to reiterate right here now too is because I said in the first episode, one of the biggest things that came into my awareness was the flat earth versus globe earth. Now, like I said, I am not trying to prove one or the other, because now, do I resonate with one more than the other? Absolutely, 100%. Do I know for a fact, through and through, that my version is the truth, the ultimate truth? No. I will never say it's the truth, because I don't know. I will only know one day when I ascend out of this realm, when it's my time to go. Then I will have the full understanding of it all. And so that came into my awareness, and I dived deep into the flat earth model and completely saturated my whole being with it and created my truth. Then it was this year, I was still into it. I was still seeing like videos here and there, but it wasn't as much because I wasn't in a place where I was like trying to prove it anymore and like blasting it all in my social media feeds and stuff like that, like I once was. I dialed it back and I was like, I don't need to shove this in people's faces anymore. Every once in a while, like I think it's fascinating, and so I'll throw up, something in my stories or whatever just to start waking people up. It's my job, It's me as a projector illuminating a different way of thinking, a different light. And so I would still put things here and there in there, but not like shoving it in people's faces like you have to believe this. But if they choose to look at it because it's coming into their awareness, it'll help them on their journey. But I started to, the videos that were starting to come into my awareness now, earlier this year, was that the flat earth model, the flat earth theory, was a psyop to get people to stay in division. And I lost it. For like 2 months, I was just at a loss. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. I didn't know what to believe. I was truly being tested on my faith, because everything didn't make sense. Everything was backwards. Everything was like, it became so clear that there are two sides to every story. We are on a polarity planet. Like, there are the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. If you look at everything in this world, there's two sides, right? Like left, right, black, white, male, female, red, blue, Democrat, Republican. Like, it's insane. Heliocentric model, flat earth model, insane. And the deeper you dive, there is information that proves both sides. And I think the purpose, what I'm starting to really like come into and understand, is the purpose of having this duality is for you to come back to yourself and say, okay, there is this side that puts out all this information and has all these studies that back up this, but then there's this side that has this information and all these studies that prove this way. Well, what are you supposed to do with that, honestly? And it's very clear. Disregard what both sides are trying to project at you and try to understand it for yourself. What truly makes sense to you based on your perception, your thoughts, your feelings, what you hear, see, taste, smell, all of it. And then just be okay with it. Don't feel like you have to be, fearful of what you believe in because somebody else isn't going to believe you. That's everything. I mean, just take the medical system, for instance. Western medicine versus Eastern medicine. Like, the full truth, one side is not the truth. The truth is in the middle, right? And you can kind of take that theory with any topic, politics, religion, like you name it. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. And so that's like those full circle moments where I was awakened with this idea of flat earth. But then 3 years later, I've come full circle where now I'm seeing information that proves that it was just made up to create a division within humanity, which now really makes sense to me that here in this world, this dense, low vibrational energy world, we are like, there's an evil power at play here that just wants to divide humanity, because united we stand, divided we fall, right? So humans need to come together as one. Doesn't mean that we all have to be on the same page of what we think, but love each other unconditionally no matter where our viewpoints are, right? And now it's like, holy crap, it's so true. And when you start learning about like the law of one, the law of attraction, and manifestation, it's like, whoa, we are such powerful beings. We manifest realities. Based on our thoughts and actions. And it's kind of a daunting place to be, because you have to be so impeccable with your words. You have to be so impeccable with your thoughts. Really watch what your inner dialogue is saying, because anything that comes after the statement, I am, you are creating that. So if you're always saying, I am tired, I am ugly, I am fat, I am all these negative things, that's what you're going to be. So learning to make a statement saying, I feel tired. Do you see the difference? I am tired is a statement. This is who I am. It's what I'm going to be. I feel. Feelings can come and go, right? So I feel tired has a different frequency and different vibration than I am tired. So learning to be impeccable with your words is game-changing, life-changing. And that is, so talking about 3D, I want to talk a little bit about, you probably started seeing like this 3D to 5D New Earth stuff going around. And if you haven't, just go do a little bit of research, catch yourself up. But humanity is on this ascension from 3D density, third density, and we're moving to a fifth density, a higher vibrational state. And in the 5D, there is no room for low vibrational energy. And so I started this all was starting to come into my realm of awareness, and I was like, well, how am I supposed to know that I'm in 5D? Like, I was so confused. I mean, I kind of like understood it, but still, like, how am I supposed to know? Like, am I ascending properly? Like, all these things start going through your mind when all this is like in your realm of awareness, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I was watching an Elizabeth April podcast on YouTube. Go check her out. She's amazing. And she was breaking down the 3D, 4D, 5D and explaining it. And when I listened to her, it made so much sense. It clicked within me so hard. And so she basically explains that 3D is this place of unawake. You're not awake to any other truths than what you were programmed to believe. You are on autopilot all the time. You don't really deviate from your routines. You just wake up, eat breakfast, go to work, come home, make dinner, read a book, play on your phone, go to bed, watch a movie, go to bed. Like, you just live out that day-to-day life every single day with no, like, nothing. Like, you're just, hello, like, you know what I mean? And then the 4D, which is actually, to me, way scarier than 3D, but 4D, you're like half awake. Like, you are super obsessed with the conspiracy theories. You are in this place of judgment. My way is the right way. Like, you're like stuck in this mindset of, you know, shoving your perspective on other people, disregarding how they might feel, and, you know, all these things, which I was stuck in for a couple years. I didn't even know it. When you get to the 5D, you become this observer. You see both sides and just observe it objectively. Is that the word I'm looking for? You don't have judgment. You just see both sides and you're like, okay, it doesn't faze me one way or the other, right? Because you're just operating from a heart-centered space, from unconditional love. Love thy neighbor as yourself. You're just like, oh, okay, you see it that way. I don't, but that's okay. We can still coexist together and live life and do life together, and it doesn't matter. That's 5D. And so when I was like, oh my God, I'm there. I made it. Do I still have moments where I dip down into 4D? 100%. You kind of go back and forth between these frequencies. But there are people in this world that are living purely in the 5D. It's here. Christ consciousness is here. The second coming of Christ is here. But it's a choice. It's a choice for everybody to accept it into their hearts. It's like, what would Jesus do? Jesus would love each person he encountered 100% like he loves himself. He befriended the tax collector. He befriended the prostitute. He befriended the homeless. He doesn't care what you look like on the outside. He cares about your heart. That's the true teachings of Christ. And when that's the ascension, is to claim your Christ. Mary Magdalene was a Christ. Buddha was a Christ. Yeshua was a Christ. Because they merged their fully human self with their fully divine self and became one with it. Instead of separating the divineness in us and the ego in us, they were able to bring the two together to be the true human. That's what Mary Magdalene refers to Jesus as in the book of Mary, is he was able to achieve a true human, where he was fully divine and fully human. And that's one thing I really want to point out for you guys to start going down your own journey of learning this and understanding this within yourself. Is I don't know like where it is in the Bible, but there is a part in the Bible where it talks about Jesus's journey and how he, from like the age of 12, all of a sudden at like 12, he leaves, is it Bethlehem or Nazareth, wherever he spent most of his childhood, I can't remember, but one of the two. He leaves that place when he's 12 and goes to Egypt, and he's in Egypt for like till he's in his 30s, probably till he's 30. And so when you actually start learning about that part of his life, he was learning from the Egyptian mystery schools. He was learning to be a mystic, a high priestess, high priest, learning the alchemy that we as humans have. We have the power. And so he went and learned that, and then he came back to then teach the people how powerful we are. And there's even a quote in the Bible that says, like, Jesus wasn't able to heal everybody or work these miracles on everybody. It was only the people who truly believed that he could heal and transform and work miracles on. There were people he couldn't because they didn't believe in him. You see? And oh, this gets me so like fired up. Like this is my passion. This is like true. Like I am literally walking the life of Yeshua. And you can think I'm batshit crazy. I don't even care. The signs, like I had my awakening when I was 33. My name, Stacy, you can look it up. It means resurrection. I am like in awe. Like Jesus died when he was 33. We have 33 vertebrae in our body. Like it's insane. Like all the things I have really started to learn. I'm not going to go into all of them because, you know, we're already over an hour right now. It's going to be a long one. But yeah, it's been so fascinating to walk this journey. It's not for the faint of hearts. I know that I have people just rolling their eyes and probably saying, you know, things behind my back, but you know what? That behavior isn't a reflection of me. I am just speaking my truth, standing in my power, and being confident in myself and what my faith is. It's only a reflection of the person that is projecting the judgment. Okay? So I want you to be really confident in that as you step into your spiritual awakening and you step into your fullness and your great potential that you signed up for. I know that there are people that watch this that they know they're on some sort of journey and you just might not know where to go with it. Like, your girl is here for you, okay? Don't hesitate to message me, text me, call me if we know each other, like, personally. Like, it's a journey and a half, and it's a hard one, and it's a roller coaster, to be honest. You are going to have highs where you're so confident in what you believe in, and then you're going to have a tower moment that really tests your faith and really tests what you're made of and all of that. And it's a hard place to be, but that's the death and rebirth cycle that all of nature goes through, right? We're not blooming. Flowers aren't blooming all year round, right? Flowers die, trees die, or they shed their leaves and they look dead for a period of time. But then every spring comes and the rebirth happens, and then you're just on a whole new level of life, a whole new level of awareness, and then you ride that roller coaster until something comes in to test your faith, and it's just this constant like ebbing and flowing with life. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about that I have down here was just about overcoming hard obstacles and finding your strength. Like I have taken so much time to reflect on the last 4 years, and I really encourage you to sit with yourself, be honest with yourself and open, journal if you want to, but like reflect on how your life has changed over the 4 years. The people that have dropped out of your life in the 4 years and what those people brought to your life and what you gained from that relationship, what the lesson was supposed to be learned there and things like that. Because when I reflect back on losing my job, well, not really losing my job, but I made the choice to step away from that environment because I was one of the only people that viewed things differently. So I felt very alienated. I felt very judged. And being an empath, you feel energy so much. And so you can feel that you're unwanted. You can feel these things. And what was interesting, going through cosmetology school, like you learned like really quickly that there's things that you don't talk about in the salon. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics. And I think there was like something else. But those were like the couple things like you just don't talk about in a salon setting because everybody has different opinions, right? Well, when COVID happened and all of this like presidential shenanigans was revving up, the people, the owner of the salon and the other coworkers of mine, like they were openly talking about their side of things, which was completely opposite than my viewpoint. But I felt like I couldn't talk about my viewpoint because then it would rile up everybody else and then I would be attacked because I was the only one that viewed that way. So like I just chose to, that environment wasn't serving me, but I lost that friendship from those people because like I said, like none of them talked to me anymore. And so it's like it was devastating and I didn't know how I was really going to come back from it until I built out, you know, the salon in my garage and my clients, you know, followed me. And now that's been a huge thing, is like my clientele has really dwindled. I don't know, like people have moved. I've had clients pass away. People just, ever since COVID, really, like they've let, you know, they don't get their hair done as often. They've growing out their gray, like all these things, you know, have changed. And so my clientele has really dwindled. And which, when that happens, that's my sole income. And so every client that drops off is like a chunk of money that I don't no longer receive anymore. And so I've had to really humble myself and really just be so grateful for what I do have, because I can definitely spiral into the lack mentality, and I have definitely battled lack mentality, feeling like I can't go to dinner with this person, I can't go to drinks with this person, I can't go do this, I can't, you know, all these like I can'ts. But that's when you can spiral out of control. That's when your ego gets the best of you. And so I've had to really be impeccable with my thoughts. And whenever those thoughts creep in, like, oh, I don't have enough for this and I can't do this and blah, blah, blah. My life sucks. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Like all these things, right? I have to then switch the mindset and say, I have the freedom to go and do what I want when I want, within reason. You know, not all things cost money. I can find ways to do X, Y, and Z without spending, you know, an arm and a leg. Like I just had to like really switch the way that I think and focus on the things that I have to be grateful for, because understanding the law of attraction is where our energy goes, or where our attention goes, energy flows. So if you're constantly focused on the lack, you're just going to see more things that prove lack in your life. But if you focus on all the things that you're grateful for, then that opens up your vibration to magnetize more things to be grateful for. And so learning that has been super game changing, and learning to just, when something negative happens, or a low vibrational thought comes through my mind, I have the power to alchemize it. I can immediately say, nope, not today. We're going to focus on all the things that I have to be grateful for. And that's life changing, right? You hold the power. Yeah. All right, you guys, sorry. I got interrupted by Miss Kinsley. I kind of lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, I think I was talking about like finding my strength and rebuilding after all of these losses, what seemed to be losses in my life. So yeah, going from, you know, working full time, making a lot of money and blah, 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 to then having to be home, and took my clientele home. I wasn't taking new clients because, hello, it's my home. I don't want to just take any, you know, person off the street into my, you know, the privacy of my home. So I just had a very limited income for, you know, still to this day. I've really had to work through the scarcity and lack mentality, and, you know, knowing like my husband works full time, does the 9-to-5 grind basically, and he's basically the sole provider. And so this change, this dynamic has been really hard to navigate when you're used to, you know, having your own money coming in and like things like that. It's really put me out of my comfort zone financially. But so then fast forward to that first business, that I was venturing into and how it came crashing down. And I had put so much energy into that one that I felt so defeated. I was just kind of like, holy shit, how am I going to rebuild from this? But I did each time, slowly but surely. But that time, I mean, I had just started really getting into like tarot and oracle cards and learning these different divination tools to connect to higher self, God, source, universe, spirit team, whatever. And when that came crashing down, I was just like, I cut it all off. For about 6 months, I was like, nope. It was almost like this feeling of like being mad at God. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, how can you do this to me? I thought you loved me. You know, that kind of a vibe. And coming out of it, I realized that is, you know, that is love, unconditional love. Just like with our kids, like we don't stop every bad thing from happening to our kids. We don't intervene with every fall that they take or every mishap that happens. They are here to live out lessons and learn from them. If we always saved them from every obstacle, we would never learn and grow, right? And so when you start to learn that, it's like, psh, psh, like this wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me. What am I supposed to learn from it? And that's where we should be at with every aspect of our life. This isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. Why? And start questioning it. Question everything. Everything. There are no coincidences in life. There's only synchronicities. And a lot of times people, what I'm really starting to understand is that our biggest obstacle we have to overcome is our greatest fear. So if you want to take some time and really reflect on what you fear the most and see how it reflects into your life today, take this as confirmation, because it's just going to keep getting worse and worse until you face your fear and you heal that part of you and learn what you're supposed to learn from it. The sooner that you can do that, the sooner you can alchemize that, and then you won't have to deal with it anymore. And then everything was going great, and then I had this new business opportunity come into my realm, and that was going really good until it wasn't, and that came to an end. And this time it was so different. Like, yes, I was still sad and distraught and bummed that I was losing it, but I had learned so much from the first time that I was like, okay, why is this happening again? It was a cycle. Like, what are the odds, really, that almost to the day, like it was within like literally a week of each other or less, I lost two business opportunities a year apart, almost to the day. Like that's not a coincidence. And so I was able to look at it from a different perspective and a different level of awareness. And I was able to see like, oh, that wasn't really actually meant for me. It was a test to see how I would react. Did I actually learn from the first experience, you know, or do I still have more to learn? And like I said, I was still pretty devastated. I know I cried, and I thought things were gonna kind of mend each other back, but she, you know, chose not to respond to me. And then, you know, a month or so went by, and I finally felt called to share my story. And so I created my YouTube video where I talk about how I lost two businesses back to back and how to like overcome like cycles that happen, like repeating cycles in your life. So if you're curious, that's, you know, down on my feed somewhere too. You can watch that one. But so I created that video, and you guys, I was so respectful. The worst thing I said about her, which I didn't even say names or anything, so like only the people in my like real life, like little circle of people knew who I was talking about. Nobody else on my feed knows who she is. But the only thing I said was my perception of her and what I experienced was that she was a people pleaser. It's not like rude or anything. It's what I experienced seeing things, right? And so it was like a couple weeks after I even shared it, 3 weeks, I think. It was a while. She saw it, she listened to it, I guess, and she lost it on me, completely lost it on me. And I was just at a place where I was like, oh my, like, I'll let you sit with that. That's, you know, your own inner demons coming out, and I'm not gonna engage in this at all. And it's so fascinating because like I said, I mean, I haven't seen her since February 27th, or no, it was a couple days after that, because she had to come get a cabinet from my garage. And at that moment, everything was great, everything was fine. I was getting ready to go to Vegas, and so we had planned to get together and like talk things out when I got back. But like I said, she chose to ignore me and didn't make time for me. And that was like a big thing. It's like, oh, well, if I'm not important enough, if our friendship is important enough, then it is what it is. You know, I'm not going to put my energy into somebody who isn't going to make, you know, time for me. Isn't important enough, you know? And so I just let that go, and I hadn't seen her since. And it was her birthday, and I was driving back from the feed store, and I was going this way, and she was coming this way. And we were stopped, and she didn't see me, but I saw her, and it just clicked, and I was like, oh, it's her birthday. And when I had seen her, I had thought, like, I had it in my head that I was going to be like so nervous and like weirded out or whatever. And I just saw her, and I was like, oh, it's your birthday. And like, it was just such an interesting feeling, because I was like, oh, I don't even have any hate in my heart. Like, I just wish her the best. And I text her, and I was like, hey, I just saw you on the street, and I know it's your birthday, so I hope you have, you know, the best birthday. She never responded, and I didn't expect her to. She probably actually has me blocked or something. But it was just such a cool moment to realize, like, wow, even though this devastating thing happened, I don't have any hate in my heart for her. I just love her like I love myself. It wasn't meant to work out. We were supposed to learn something from this situation, and I wish you the best. Like, it was so cool. It was such a cool moment to experience that and whatnot. And I even had like these thoughts of, like, you know, she had her grand opening of the boutique, and which hurt a little bit. Like, it kind of like stung and like re-triggered some things, like I said in the last episode. But it was easy enough to like snap myself out of the trigger and just be like, it wasn't meant for me. God has a different plan for me. He knows my heart, and it wasn't to be shackled to this boutique and things like that. And I'm more of a creator. Like, I wanted to create the things to be in the boutique. And so anyways, so yeah, it was like such this full circle moment. And I even like thought of all these things, like, oh, you know, I should go just get a bouquet of peonies, because I know that's her favorite flower, and just go to the boutique and give them to her and tell her how proud I am of her for, you know, doing the dang thing and blah, blah, blah. And so it's just funny. Like, you would think that having something so devastating happen to you, you'd be full of hate, but the true teachings of Christ is that you don't have hate in your heart. You just see it for what it is and let it go, and wish these people the best, you know. So it's been a journey of growth, and I am so thankful to be mostly operating from this 5D realm and just looking at everybody in my everyday life and just loving them fully for who they are and what they're going through, and just witnessing and truly seeing them, and not placing judgment anymore for anything. There's no room for any judgment, and just trying to bring humanity together. The only way we're going to get out of this alive is to join arms regardless of our belief systems. I truly, truly believe that. So I'm going to leave it here for this episode. Thanks for joining me and chit-chatting some more. It's been so fun opening up about my journey, my true journey of everything, like all my thoughts and feelings. I plan on opening up more and more. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have nothing to hold back. And like, if I can share something that's kind of icky and pokey that I've gone through to shed some light to help one other person, that's all I'm here for. I don't care if just one of you receive what I have to say. That is enough for me. So yeah, going forward, the power is in the people, you guys. Like, really take that into consideration. They, you know, not the political leaders that you hear in the media. It's the they that you, the names you don't hear, that are controlling the puppets, you know, the puppeteers, if you will. They know how powerful we are, and they manipulate us with the media and movies and things like that, because we create based on our thoughts and actions. So if they are manipulating the way we feel and think, they're gonna create, they're creating what they want through us. Like, they have a vision and they put out all this stuff so that you feel a certain way and then act a certain way, and then you create their reality that they are designing. So reel it back in, reel it back in. Be aware of the divide. Be aware of the divide. With this political election coming up, be very cautious of where you're putting your attention. If your attention is going to the divide, that's what's going to be created. Your attention has to go towards unity at this time, okay? We have to come together as one humanity, one human race, not this division. They have tried to divide us by our color of our skin. No, unacceptable. I don't condone. They have tried to divide us based on our political beliefs. Absolutely not. Do not condone. Do not participate. Really, it's a ritual, you guys. For those that don't want to believe in witches and stuff like that, one, the term witches was just labeled onto powerful women and men using their intuition and their God-given senses to operate in this world. They couldn't be controlled, so they burnt them at the stake. They killed them off. But the rituals that you're participating in with the purpose of divide, that's how it's going to end for you if you participate in this ritual. It's not left versus right. It's humanity coming together. And they're two wings of the same bird, my friends. I'm just going to leave it there. Two wings of the same bird. Quit choosing sides. Your side is not right or wrong. It just all needs to go. So, anyways, I love you guys so much. Thanks for hanging with me and listening to my thoughts. Remember, they're my thoughts. They don't have to be your thoughts, but you can love me anyways. And this is a judgment-free zone. I accept everybody, and I could care less I could care less what you choose to do with your life, because it's your life. It's not mine. It doesn't affect my reality. So going forward, do what Jesus would do. Love everybody unconditionally for who they are. And you will see that life gets grander and grander when you can shove your ego to the side and step into your divine God, goddess self. All right. Until next time, I'll catch you on the next one. Love you guys so much. Sending you all the love and light.